Now, we're going to cover some important topics today, not least of all, and most importantly, is going to be the Trump-Putin summit, alleged summit. It's hard to know exactly what's going on, but we'll be sharing the details of that with you in a few minutes. There's also a disturbing situation that's brewing in Lebanon, and we have been discussing this recently with some of our colleagues, and we'll be sharing some of our analysis with you as well in this first segment, and as well as another disturbing situation in Gaza. And all of these have a common theme, and that is the United States is pretending to negotiate. The Trump administration is fumbling all of these situations, okay, and not really fumbling them. It looks actually a lot more nefarious than that, and that's what we're going to discuss. What's actually happening, and this is a disaster in the making geopolitically. I think for the U.S. domestically as well, but the U.S. is kicking and screaming all the way to the end of empire. So we'll be discussing that, and then after Overdrive, we'll be joined by our teammates from Alternate Current Radio, probably Hesher and Ruckus, perhaps Basil Valentine, I'm not sure. And we'll be discussing these issues as well as others. So look out for us in Overdrive. And we'll also be featuring some of the feedback and comments from some of our listeners and viewers on the various streams we've got live right now on Rumble, YouTube, also on X, Facebook Live, BitChute, as well as on the audio streams on iTunes, Spotify, and all the other top audio streams. We're there after the program as per normal if you're subscribing to us on those channels. So let's bring on to the stage the background of all of this. And so this is the theme of today's show. U.S. betrayals are afoot and are incoming in Lebanon, but also Ukraine as well. We'll discuss the details of that with you in just a moment. So we've got all of these different theaters where the U.S. is basically, I think, planning to Shanghai, whoever the counterparty is in negotiations on this. So in the Middle East, it's all for Israel. That's what you need to understand. Okay, all for Israel in the Middle East. So that includes Lebanon. And so I'll go over what's at stake and what's at play in Lebanon as well. In Ukraine, what Trump is posing he's planning to do, which is, we've got a deal. It's been, okayed in principle by the Russians. This is a deal they can work with. They're nowhere near a deal. Not even close. Okay. This is all media hype. Russia, with its open door policy on negotiations, is going to go along and go with the motions on this. But they're nowhere near any kind of negotiated settlement. They have, some terms and principle that look promising, but the devil's in the detail, and they haven't ironed out any of it. Plus, there's too many loose cannons on the sidelines. Okay, I'll break down the details of this in just a moment, but that's what you need to understand. So we'll get into what this means. So we'll discuss what's happening in Levant, which is it's horrifying what the U.S. and Israel are planning for Lebanon. It's absolutely horrifying. We'll discuss that as well as Gaza in a moment, and we'll get on to the Trump-Putin summit in Alaska. I mean, I don't know why the Russians are actually playing ball with the U.S. That to me is baffling. Anyway, after everything that they've done to Russia, especially after the last Istanbul agreement. Anyway, we'll tell you what it means in just a moment. So here we are. And before that, we'll show you this Sunday screening here. And this is Nuclear Doomsday Devices, Cold War's Ultimate Weapons. This is a good retrospective for the Sunday screening in terms of a short but very, very information-packed documentary film. Just to reiterate what happened in the Cold War and the importance of understanding the risks of thermonuclear war. Okay. And what it could mean for everybody in terms of their life as you know it, wherever you are in Europe, in the UK, in the United States, or whatever, it's going to affect you. Even Australia is not safe. You guys are hosting one of the largest U.S. Signet listening stations in the world, Pine Gap, as well as in Darwin, okay, AUKUS agreement, and the rest of it. So even as far-flung as Australia, you're not going to be safe in a thermonuclear exchange. Sorry. So there's a lot of countries that are going to get smashed to pieces, and life will never be the same. And you have a president in the White House now in the U.S. that is flirting with nuclear war and joking about it, maybe not joking about it, but threatening Russia, probably not far off from threatening China with nukes as well. So got a little bit of a problem, obviously, with this, and just going to have to be resolved either at the ballot box or through impeachment or removing him under the 25th Amendment. Trump has just proven himself to be a complete idiot, okay, and a dangerous idiot. So watch this film, and just to understand how previous presidents and the skill level in terms of diplomacy from previous presidents and how that compares to Donald Trump. It's important that you understand and know the difference between these two things. Because what you have now, the caliber of politician in the White House now, compared to, let's say, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, the caliber of CIA analyst, the caliber of Secretary of State. I mean, look at Marco Rubio, literally an errand boy for the Israeli lobby, okay? Zero diplomatic skills. He has been sidelined by a shyster property developer from New York, friend of Trump, but more importantly, friend of Israel, Steve Witkoff, has sidelined little narco as Secretary of State. That's how pathetic Marco Rubio is in this job that he believes is a stepping stone to him becoming the Republican nominee in 2028. Okay. Rubio he's been promised great things in 2028 by Paul Singer and Mary Madelson, as long as he does right for Israel. Okay, nothing else matters for Rubio in terms of his career. So that goes for pretty much everybody else in the national security and foreign policy collective in the Trump administration, which is not actually the Trump administration. We'll show you that also in a few minutes. Not actually the Trump administration. So important you understand that. So let's get to the business, okay? Let's get to the business, and the business is Lebanon. This is the problem that we face right now today, okay? The United States and Israel are trying to foment a civil war in Lebanon. And let me just explain to you how they're doing it, okay? This is one of the worst betrayals of a country that has been used and abused by the British, the French, and of course by the Americans, and all at the service of the state of Israel. This is Abraham Majid, a frequent guest on the Midweek Wire. We also host X Spaces together. We did a great space last night. Unfortunately, it wasn't recorded. It was an impromptu space. But if you follow my feed, you might have caught it. Very informative. We've got some of the best, I think, minds available on the case to give a fluid analysis of what's happening. He's saying here, this is what he's saying in this tweet that we've got up, Lebanon's next scenarios after the government's decision to disarm the resistance. Lebanon stands at a crossroads after the government's recent decision to disarm the resistance, i.e. Hezbollah, a move that threatens to reshape the country's fragile political and security landscape. Now, that's just the beginning, okay? So what the United States have done here, it's important that you really understand what's happening, okay? What the United States has done here, the United States is constructing what's a concept that you might know called Hobson's choice, okay? The Hobson's choice that the U.S. and Israel are forcing upon the Lebanese, okay? Forcing upon the Lebanese. They want to get rid of Hezbollah once and for all, okay? The U.S., Israel, and Saudi Arabia. Okay. Israel is now giving orders to the Lebanese prime minister, who's a Western puppet, Nawaf Salam, and the president, who effectively is also a Western puppet. Let's be honest. Okay. These are figurehead political leaders that ultimately don't have much power at all. And the Lebanese central government has struggled to have any power in that country for the longest time. And not blaming it on them specifically, the government. I mean, they're weak because they are being micromanaged by the U.S. Embassy up on the hill over Beirut. Sorry, folks. It's just a reality. And by extension, that means they're being micromanaged by Tel Aviv. Okay, the only thing that's protecting that country in any real sense is the resistance, is Hezbollah, unfortunately. So let's get into it. Okay, the Hobson's choice is that the U.S. and Israel are demanding that Hezbollah be disarmed, demanding the Lebanese do that, or the alternative is a bloody civil war. And if you know the history of Lebanon over the last 40 or 50 years, okay, you'll know that for many people in the country, the last thing they want to do is return to any kind of protracted civil war. And by the way, it wasn't a civil war before. It was a war that was engineered by external powers, like all wars in the Middle East, all, quote, civil wars, okay, namely the United States and Israel. So this will be the same. And so is Hezbollah going to disarm? Doubtful. Would you disarm after you've seen what Israel's done to Syria? Syria effectively disarmed, or it was disarmed by Israel in the first days of the Jolani coup back in December 2024, not so long ago, 6 months ago, 7 months ago. 8 months ago, I guess, more than that. So would you disarm? Where are you going to end up? What's to stop Israel from invading South Lebanon again? Nothing. They will invade South Lebanon. That's 100% guaranteed. And then the U.S. and Israel unleash the dogs of war. The radical Wahhabi fanatics, the terrorists, they will unleash Jolani's al-Qaeda brigades onto northern Lebanon. They will move into Tripoli, and then you will have sectarian fighting, violent sectarian fighting in Lebanon. And you'll see the country fracture so quickly. And then very easy for them to infiltrate and send ISIS into South Lebanon, very into Beirut. Car bombs, assassinations, okay? Just like before, but much worse, much more violent and more intense. And to top it off, you'll have Israel carpet bombing South Beirut, South Lebanon, and trying to turn some of these areas into something that resembles the Gaza Strip, to stamp out this alleged terrorists, or what they deem to be terrorists, i.e., Lebanese militia defending their land. Why is there armed militia in Lebanon called Hezbollah? Because the Lebanese army itself, which is controlled by the United States, can't defend its borders, can't defend the country. It's not allowed to have certain weapons. It doesn't control its own airspace. The U.S. and Israel effectively control Lebanese airspace. This is not a sovereign country. That's just the sad fact. You know, and there's many reasons for that. And people can complain and say, well, that's not a very nice thing to say, but it's true. It might not be nice if you're Lebanese or if you belong to certain factions that are especially allied with the United States. If you're in a warlord faction that is Western aligned or Israeli aligned, you might not like to hear that. You might say, oh, that's not true, but it is. And America knows it. That's why America built a fortress up on the hill just due north of Beirut. Why would they build this massive complex? It's an absolute fortress, okay? Because they are planning for a civil war. That's why. And that will be a pro-U.S. stronghold in that area. The Americans are very nefarious and devious, and people would do well not to be so naive as to what's actually happening here. They're willing to throw that country into a bloody civil war. They will allow Israel to do whatever it wants militarily. The U.S. will deploy special forces to get experience and do mayhem, as will the British. They'll allow the French to get in there as well and get some practice doing special ops. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Training ground for more war. It's what these things tend to be, unfortunately. And the Saudis are going to pay for X, Y, and Z and egg it on because they want to see the end of Hezbollah as well. So that's what's happening. This is what's happening in Lebanon. This is coming. What can stop it? I don't know. It doesn't look good. But step one for the U.S. and Israel will be to fracture the Lebanese army along sectarian lines, so that then it fails, and then that one thing that one piece of continuity that Lebanon does have will be fractured and basically delegitimized, and that will open the door to warlordism and sectarianism, and that will be a power vacuum. And who will move in? Israel will move in. The U.S. will move in. Jolani and the Al-Qaeda tools that the U.S. and Israel use, they'll move in. And then the other various and sundry warlord factions, Christian and etc., they'll move into and reinforce their own sort of fiefdoms. And the Shia will do the same. And the Sunni will do the same. And that's it. And they'll strangle that country and torture it until someone's crying, enough people are crying uncle, and it'll come under some international mandate once again. Rinse and repeat like last time, but only worse. And with an emboldened Israel that has shown the level of brutality that is willing to unleash against densely populated civilian areas, a level of ruthlessness and brutality, knowing that nobody will stop them. They can do as they wish against densely populated civilian areas. This is what Israel has demonstrated to the world after Gaza. This is what Israel demonstrated to the world by how many homes were destroyed in Lebanon by Israel. How many thousands of people slaughtered, killed. The pager attacks, which a lot of U.S. politicians and people joke about. Oh, how funny it was. There's people maimed for life, women and children, normal people, maimed for life, killed, murdered in this genius pager attack by the Israelis. A terrorist attack, not condemned by the West, but applauded for Israel's ingenuity. The moral depravity of the West in endorsing what is clearly just state terrorism by Israel and just mass murder and genocide in Gaza and in the region in general. And then the sectarian pogroms by this terrorist in Damascus they call President Jolani. Disgusting. All backed and lauded, and you have Western foreign ministers going over there, prostrating themselves in front of the former deputy of ISIS, founder of Al-Qaeda in Syria, al-Jolani, President al-Sharar. So, the war on terror. That was the number one raison d'etat of the U.S. for the last 25 years. Or in Britain, what a joke. What a farce it all ended up becoming. Well, we knew it was that. We knew it was that the whole time. So anyway, we can go deeper on that, and we will. And maybe we'll have our colleague on the Midweek Wire to talk about it, Ibrahim Majid. So next item of business is this: the Putin-Trump summit. The Putin-Trump summit. Okay. Where do we start with this? My first question is, why would Vladimir Putin meet with Donald Trump in Alaska on U.S. soil? Do you trust America? What devious, underhanded, foul play is the U.S. capable of? You saw what it did to the Iranians. You saw how it coaxed the Iranians into negotiations and then tried to assassinate its head of state, its supreme leader, as well as all the military commanders. That's what happened. So they lulled them into this fake idea that there were negotiations happening. The reality was there was no such thing. So here they are, allegedly going to pound out a deal. So, as I said on Friday on the UK Column News, with all difficult divorce proceedings, it looks like a divorce proceeding in terms of like two parties wanting to remove themselves from a marriage in a proxy war against each other. And so then, of course, what do you do with the kids? So you got this little green action figure in the middle there. That's Zelensky. What do you do with the custody of the kids? There he is, little green action man from Kiev in the middle. What do we do with the kids? This is the big question. So that's going to be a problem. Okay, it's going to be a problem. So no matter how this ends up in Alaska, whenever this is, August 14th or whatever, no matter how this ends up, this is only a pre-meeting. This is only a pre-meeting as a prelude to well, the U.S. want to try, a trifecta with Zelensky, Putin, and Trump, but Russia doesn't take Zelensky seriously as a negotiation partner. And likewise, Russia doesn't trust the United States as an agreement-capable partner in negotiations. So what are they hoping to achieve? It's kind of difficult to work this out. What's productive here? It's not 100% clear. And to make matters even more complicated, okay, it's not going to give you a ceasefire even during this negotiation process. So they're basically agreeing to talk. Allegedly, there are terms presented by Steve Witkoff, the magic man, the Del Boy of diplomacy, who was in Moscow a couple of days ago slurping caviar. And supposedly the Russians say, yeah, this is workable. We can talk about that. There's talk of a land swap. Personally, I think that's going to be a non-starter. So if the fighting is going to continue, there's no cessation of U.S. weapons going to Ukraine. There's no cessation of U.S. intelligence going to Ukraine. So this is set up to fail. This is set up to fail, and how the U.S. will play it is Trump will say, well, we met, and it was a perfectly good deal. We gave them everything they want. Quite frankly, it was everything they want. Quite frankly, a lot more than I was prepared to give, but, nobody would have given as much as I did. Quite frankly, it was just a perfectly good deal. And the Russians just weren't serious. This is the Israeli negotiation tactic. You lure people into some kind of a negotiation situation, and then you start moving the goalposts around and inserting this and inserting that to the point where it's almost a guarantee that the thing's going to collapse. And then when it collapses, you turn around and you blame the other side for rejecting a, quote, perfectly good deal. Okay. The Israelis have perfected this. And the reason they do this is to buy time to change facts on the ground. So you have to ask yourself the question, what are the U.S. buying time for in Ukraine? To change facts on the ground. Can they do that? Not sure. Do they believe they can do that? Apparently, yes. And that's why you're seeing what you're seeing. Do you trust? I can't see at the same time this is happening. I cannot take the U.S. position seriously. Because at the same time this is happening, you have other things going on. Here's Zelensky. He's going to reject the land swap deal. So there's too many. There are too many parties on the sidelines that will shoot this thing down. You've got Zelensky. He's not going to do anything productive or cooperate. He might even be out of there. He might even have fled the country by the time this gets going. But let's say he stays in. The Nazi hard right that keeps him in power will see any concessions of territory or anything like that, all things that Russia wants that the U.S. supposedly in this pro forma deal with Witkoff have. They're going to see that as a betrayal. So Zelensky's life will be under threat. So there's no way he can. So if they don't get buy-in from the Ukrainians, there's nothing. Okay? It's cosplay. It's cosplay at this point. They're playing. And I personally think Russia's willing to go along with this to buy time themselves. Because while all this is happening, Russia is making steady progress towards the Dnieper River. And we all know, those of us who understand the trajectory of this conflict, not just from February 2022 when the, quote, war broke out, but all the way back to 2014 and even further back. We understand the demographics. We understand the territorial anomalies with the creation of Ukraine as a state entity, historically, all of that. And Russia, of course, understands all of this. And Trump and his team don't really understand it. And even if you explained it to them, they would dismiss it out of hand as Russian propaganda or the Russian authoritarian view or Russia trying to rekindle the glory of the Soviet Union, the Soviet Empire, some bollocks like this. Okay. Even if you spelled it out to them. I'm showing you an RT article here on screen. Nobody in Britain or Europe reads RT because they blocked it. They censored it because they don't want their people, or their politicians or policymakers actually seeing what the Russian position is and quite frankly, the facts of these stories. Sorry if it hurts. RT is depressingly accurate, especially on these types of things. Ukrainian statements, Ukrainian positions, Russian statements, Russian positions. It's depressingly accurate. There's hardly any spice and sizzle in it. It's just depressingly accurate, and it's daily. And our people are not reading it. So how can they know what the Russian intentions are, the context of the arguments? So Trump doesn't understand any of this. So Trump is going to BS his way through negotiations. That's what's going to happen. Donald Trump is going to BS his way through this. He doesn't understand how this conflict began. He can't even articulate the true causes of the current phase of this conflict, what Russia called a special military operation. Donald Trump doesn't understand how it got to this. This is beyond his level of comprehension and pretty much beyond the level of Pete Hegseth or any of these other people. It's political suicide for them to publicly admit what actually happened. because it was a U.S. coup in 2014 that started this maelstrom to begin with. You can't say that publicly. Not in Washington, not in London, not in Paris, not in Berlin, not in Brussels, or Stockholm, or Helsinki, and least of all, you can't say it in Oslo, or most of all. So that's where we're at. So Trump's going to BS his way. It's not going to get anywhere with Putin. You're going to get nowhere. So they're stuck with the U.S. Euro narrative on this. So Trump can't. And here's the other thing. Who else is sniping on the sidelines? Who else is going to shoot this down? Trump cannot negotiate for Europe. And he can't negotiate for the UK. They have their own agenda. And that suits the U.S. deep state right to the ground, because they can create the facade of negotiations here for the headlines between Putin and Trump. But meanwhile, the proxy war continues on the sidelines. They're just going to keep swarming Russia. This is all theater. It's all theater to extend the time horizon for this conflict. They want to get more weapons in there, and they believe they can outswarm and overwhelm Moscow with drone attacks over the next couple of years, and that they will eventually decapitate the political leadership using these military methods. That is the British policy. That was in the British Strategic Defense Review, which we reported on. If you watch these programs that we do, you know these things. If you're new, we're glad you're here. Operation Killweb was announced in Britain just the week before Zelensky and the U.S., and probably with the help of the Israelis, certainly the British were involved, in Operation Spider's Web. Add 2 and 2. You get 4. It's not difficult. So this is the reality of the situation. So Donald Trump can't negotiate for the Europeans. So he's doing this. He can't control what Germany and France and the UK have cooked up. And again, another article, 21st Century Wire. UK accused by Russian intelligence of masterminding a sabotage operation against the Russian Shadow Fleet. What is the Russian Shadow Fleet? Shipping, oil, Russian goods being on the high seas under other flagged countries. Standard practice. This is how you avoid or get around sanctions. And what is the British policy on this? Here it is. This is Keir Starmer, again, up at 21stcenturywire.com. If you look in our website, you'll know all this. This is essential information. We've had it up all week. This is what Keir Starmer said, source Politico. The threat from Russia to our national security cannot be underestimated, said Starmer last Friday. That is why we will do everything in our power to destroy his shadow fleet. Read that, folks. His shadow fleet. He's saying Putin's shadow fleet. He's personalizing it. His Putin's shadow fleet, not Russia's, Putin. And starve his war machine. He's talking about Putin again. So he's framing it like Saddam Hussein. So you're starting to see the Hitlerization again. This is the British. They're the masters of soft power and narrative building. Okay. And starve his war machine of oil revenues to protect the subsea infrastructure that we rely on for our everyday lives. So he's in one breath, he has packed so many lies in here. Subsea infrastructure, like Russia's threatening the subsea infrastructure. You remember the fake attack against the internet cables in the Baltic? That never happened. Turned out to be an anchor from some ship. They reported it for weeks like the Russians were cutting internet cables. Absolutely ridiculous. Subsea infrastructure. What about gas pipelines? Does that count as important subsea infrastructure? How about the Nord Stream pipelines 1 and 2? Is that important subsea infrastructure? Did Russia attack the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines, the biggest terrorist attack against European infrastructure during the modern era? Did Russia do that? No, they didn't. So he's banging on about protecting our subsea infrastructure. In the same breath, he's saying we need to destroy the Russian shadow fleet. That is a declaration of war. The U.S. and Britain did less to Japan prior to December 7th, 1941, to provoke the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. That's what got the U.S. into the war. Know your history. They sanctioned Japan. They tried to cut them off. They tried to derail their international shipping, to isolate them, to the point where Japan at some point felt it had no choice but to attack the United States. They are pushing for World War III. This is Britain leading the charge for World War III. And Donald Trump has nothing to say about this. So they just allow, the U.S. allows this to happen on the sidelines. That's the strategy. The strategy is to swarm Russia. This is what NATO does. It's what the EU does. So this is just a facade. It may look promising. It may look like it's productive, like it's going to, lead to something. But I personally have not seen anything articulated by any U.S. official that even remotely resembles reality, or acknowledgement of the U.S. being a belligerent. The U.S. are killing Russians. I said this on Danny Davis this week, on Daniel Davis Deep Dive. On the podcast, I said, America is killing Russians. It's using Ukraine as their tool to do it, with U.S. weapons and bombs, intelligence, and drones and whatnot. Russia's not killing Americans. Russia's not killing British servicemen. It's not killing Germans. But Europe, Britain, and the U.S. are killing Russians actively. They're co-belligerents. So they can't pretend to be a neutral negotiator. The U.S. definitely can't pretend to be a negotiator or some kind of neutral party trying to break up this fight. It's just going to fail. It's not going to go anywhere. And I think Russia understands that, and they're doing what they need to do. They're taking care of business. I think that's what's happening. So, and then the situation in Gaza. Okay, we'll have to bring this up on screen as well, because this is just ridiculous. The situation in Gaza. So here's Donald Trump. So America supposedly, again, it's back to where we were in January. I'm taking Gaza. I'm going to take Gaza. Take this, take that, take the oil. So here's a video clip from Trump. Obviously, hopefully you guys can hear this okay. But we'll just double check our system settings and make sure we've got the audio feed coming through on this nicely for you. Yes, looks good. Okay, so here it is. This is Donald J. Trump once again. So Trump says, we're taking Gaza. Reporter says, under what authority? Trump says, under American authority. The breathtaking arrogance and criminal behavior, even for the greatest terrorist and criminal nation on earth. Okay. Strong words, right? Okay, so here's Donald Trump in action. It should be entertaining. I've not actually heard the whole clip yet, but this will be interesting.
Mr. President, how do you know that the Palestinians don't want to leave their land? Some people say this is ethnic cleansing. You won't be able to force them to leave the land.
We're moving them to a beautiful location where they have new homes, where they can live safely, where they'll have doctors and medical and all of those things. And I think it's going to be great. Yeah, any questions?
You said before that the U.S. would buy Gaza, and today you just said we're not going to buy Gaza.
We're not going to have to buy. We're going to have Gaza. We don't have to buy. There's nothing to buy. We will have Gaza.
What does that mean?
No reason to buy. There is nothing to buy. It's Gaza. It's a war-torn area. We're going to take it. We're going to hold it. We're going to cherish it.
And Mr. President, take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority.
So, that I don't know if that was an old clip or not, but absolutely incredible. I mean, there were these exchanges back in February when Trump was putting out his, seaside resorts in Gaza, stupid viral videos. I mean, absolutely retarded. This administration is beyond embarrassing. They're crass. They're retarded on a certain level, and very evil and dishonest on another level. I mean, it is very corrupt. The Trump administration is very corrupt. The circle of people, the grifters that have been assembled around this president who doesn't know whether he's coming or going on a daily basis, okay, who's being micromanaged by an external foreign government, okay, and that brings us to this, and we'll go to break in a minute, but this is the problem, folks. None of us voted for the Epstein administration, but that's what we've got. We've got the Epstein administration. Okay. Jeffrey Epstein effectively, indirectly or otherwise, runs the United States government. Jeffrey Epstein, for all intents and purposes, is the figurehead president of this administration. Because Donald Trump is completely compromised and is under the full control. He is a finger puppet of Israel. It's humiliating for the United States, for those people. And Donald Trump fashions himself as a patriot. I don't think so. You can't call yourself a patriot when your entire cabinet was selected by a foreign government, and that you yourself took hundreds of millions of dollars from a foreign lobby. There's nothing patriotic about that. It's fake. Fake. This is the Epstein administration. Like it or not, that's the effect of what has happened. Every single person in there is selected based on what they can do for Israel. That's from Steve Witkoff to Marco Rubio to Mike Waltz to Tammy Bruce, all the way down the line. Okay? Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And there's nothing patriotic about it. Sorry to say. If that upsets people, tough. The United States has damaged its own reputation by hitching its wagon to a genocidal European colonial maniacal settler state that is just killing people on an industrial scale and destroying the region. Why? Because this president must be the most compromised ever, more than Biden. Biden was compromised over Ukraine. There's no doubt about that. Through his son Hunter, through his own dodgy dealings, and those of a number of Democratic operatives. But that's nothing compared to the level that Trump is compromised because of him being best friends with this guy who has denied and said, oh, I didn't really know him and he's a creep. And no, they were best buddies. These guys were best buddies. There's even, it's not even a rumor, but that Donald Trump's current wife, Melania, was introduced via Epstein to Trump, set him up with his wife or Epstein's circle. Okay, that's something that is being discussed now. I don't know the full details of it or how true it is, but it sounds incredibly plausible. And Trump is basically covering it up. He's got his AG, Pam Bondi, covering it up. Just as she swept half of this Epstein malarkey under the rug when she was in Florida. That's why she was selected as AG. That's why they screwed Matt Gaetz to pull him out of his House seat, give him a head fake that he was going to be AG, and now he's out of politics. And the person who's covering it all up is in the AG seat. And the guy who took Matt Gaetz's House seat is a rabid, drooling, massive Zionist. When we say massive, we mean literally, not just figuratively. Randy Fine, I believe, took Matt Gaetz's seat. I mean, that was a major coup. You have to marvel at the political genius of this cabal. They pulled an absolute blinder there. That was incredible. Now Matt Gaetz is doing podcasts. So he's out of power. He's on the fringe doing podcasts. So I love Matt Gaetz, but he should be in the House, not doing podcasts. But that's what Israel wants. Israel's going to get. Last but not least, and I swear we're gonna go to overdrive in a minute, but I had to share this with you guys because this is just too precious. Everything I said is encapsulated in what I'm about to show you here, because it just doesn't get any better than this. It really doesn't. Tammy Bruce. Now, if that's a name that you know, you probably know it because of Fox News. Like everything in the Trump administration, it existed first on Fox News. So here's Tammy Bruce. She is the State Department spokeswoman. So basically reading a script for IPAC. Okay. I don't know if she's a dual passport holder, but she has publicly pledged her allegiance for Israel. And I believe pledged her first loyalty to Israel, second to America, if I read that correctly before. Okay. So this is like somebody who's in America laster, in Israel firster. Thank you, Mr. President. So grateful, POTUS's trust in nominating me as Deputy Representative of the U.S. at the UN. That's another script reading job. UN rep. Okay. I've been honored to serve as State Department spokesperson. She's been an absolute nightmare. And I'm now blessed. And Trump's tweet onward. I mean, it's unbelievable. How these people manage is pretty incredible. So Trump says, I'm pleased to announce that I am nominating Tammy Bruce, a great patriot. I don't think so. A great Israeli patriot, a television personality. So she's not a great patriot. She's an Israel firster. Okay. That's not really patriotic from a U.S. Maybe an Israeli patriot. Yeah, of course, but not an American patriot. Television personality. And that's her number one qualification right there. She was on TV. Best-selling author. Again, selling books through Fox News. They have a whole pipeline for publishing. Have to present. I mean, it's doubtful. My personal opinion is doubtful that all these presenters that push books on Fox, and they push the books on Fox, that I believe, it's my opinion that most of these, if not all of them, are written. They're not written by these people. They're written by ghostwriters. They put their name on the cover. And that's how they move and make them best-selling books. That's my opinion based on, let's just say, what I've heard. Okay. I will leave it there. I could be theoretically wrong, of course. But think about it. If they're working every day, how do they have time to research and write a 300-page book? I mean, give me a break. Anyway, I've not read any of these books. And that goes for Pete Hegseth as well. Did he write that book that got him the job as defense secretary? That's up for debate. Did Bill O'Reilly or Brian Kilmeade write all their books? I don't know. Maybe O'Reilly wrote some of it. But I was never particularly impressed with Brian Kilmeade, but he was pumping a book on there every other day. So I don't know how they do it. Well, you know how they do it. Pay a few grand to a ghostwriter, and then you slap your name on the cover. And it sells like hotcakes because Fox News viewers will buy anything because they believe these presenters are geniuses because they can read teleprompters. So yeah, since the beginning of second term, Tammy has been serving with distinction. That doesn't mean much under this administration. This is just such a ridiculous vignette. So mediocrity is rewarded under the Trump administration. So this propagandist for Israel gets promoted to another propaganda script reading, teleprompter reading job at the UN, following the footsteps of great UN representatives for the US like Nikki Haley or the great John Bolton. So as you can see, and Samantha Power. I mean, it's such an esteemed position. It really is. So impressed. So impressed. I'm so impressed. I think it's time we take a break. This segment went a little bit over time. We'll connect with our teammates on the other side. I'm Patrick Henningsen. We'll be back in a few minutes. In the meantime, enjoy the music of, I think I'm in the mood for a bit of Red Rumble. I don't know about you. We'll see you on the other side in a couple minutes.
For in the final analysis, we all inhabit this small planet, and we are all mortal.
Lately I've been watching the world gone mad. Brothers and sisters full to take a stand, to hate their fellow man. Another man, divide and conquer is the acronym plan. Distract the people, control the story. Don't believe your lying eyes, you know me. Stay in power, no matter what. Playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gamble your trust, pushing us to turn to good. Corruption and lies, truth is the crime, will turn to gold. Well-designed misery to keep you on edge, make you believe anything anyone says. Keep it left or right, not top or bottom. Accuse the victim, can't you see we got 'em? Stay in power, no matter what. Playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gamble your trust, pushing us to turn to good. With captured rights, feudal like time will turn to dust. Industrialized brutality, commercialized cruelty, people as commodity, cheer on war atrocity, no accountability, perpetual impunity, always have an enemy, the hell of all humanity. Stay in power, no matter what, playing with the doomsday clock. Turn a blind eye and gamble your trust, pushing us to turn to good. Stay in power, cash in the stars, lobotomy, addicted to apathy. Oh!